Sai Ram and greetings from Prashanti Nilayam. If one studies carefully the life story of Shirdi Baba, one would find many striking parallels to incidents in the life of our beloved Swami. For example, I was viewing the other day some of our archival videotapes which have records of interviews with devotees who have spent long times with Swami during the Pathamandram days. That is to say, between somewhere around 1945 and 1950. A lady named Kamalamma, then obviously a small girl, says that one day her mother was arranging some puja materials like turmeric, kumkum, flowers, etc. While Swami was standing behind and making comments constantly like, not this way, no, you are doing it all wrong, no, the other way, etc. Kamalamma says that her poor mother became very confused and distraught by all these critical comments from Swami. She then turned and looked up at Swami, who was standing behind her. For a few seconds, the mother remained frozen. She did not say anything, but stared as if she was seeing a vision. Indeed, she was. You know what? Swami was appearing for an instant to Kamalamma's mother as Andal of Srivilliputturu. According to tradition, Andal was none other than Lakshmi, the consort of Lord Vishnu. So you see, there was a purpose behind the irritating comments that Swami was making. Later, Kamalamma's mother told her daughter about what she saw, and she said that Swami was trying to irritate her mainly to make her turn and look. The mother did just that, her aim being to plead with Swami to guide her and not confuse her. She did not know that Swami was not intent on criticizing her, but on showering grace with a divine vision. Kamalamma also records that though many were in the room, her mother alone was blessed to see what she saw. Let us now pick up the narration of Hemat Pant and see what more he has in store for us. Maybe I can start with the small garden that Baba started in Shirdi. Every morning, Baba would water the plants using earthen pitchers supplied by a devotee named Vaman Tatya. The funny thing was that these pitchers were not baked as pitchers normally are. I will now allow Hemat Pant to do the narration. Quote, his devotee Vaman Tatya would simply supply him every day with 2 unbaked earthen pitchers for that purpose. And Baba would water the plants with his own hands. From the stone vessel near the well, Baba would fill the pitchers and then carry them on his shoulders. At sunset, he would keep the pitchers under the neem tree. The moment he placed them there, they would, of their own accord, crack right on the spot. Next morning, Tatya would bring Baba 2 new pitchers. When fully baked, a pitcher is always better and lasts longer. But Baba would require only unbaked pitchers. Thus, the potter was able to sell the pitchers without the labor of baking them in the furnace. End of quote. Now, this is a wonderful point. Baba could have bought baked pitchers and kept on using them. But then, his idea was not so much as to water, but to help Tatya. This incident reminds me of somewhat similar incidents connected with our Swami, especially during his Kodaikanal sojourns. For example, many years ago, a large number of vendors selling trinkets that are popular with tourists established themselves right in front of Sai Shruti, Swami's Mandir in Kodai. Soon, a police inspector came there and cleared the spot, since he felt that these vendors were obstructing traffic and also the movement of devotees. Next day during darshan, Swami went near the police inspector who had also come for darshan. Of course, Swami made it appear as though he was just moving about normally amongst devotees. Swami whispered to the inspector that those vendors also had to live and that therefore they may be permitted to sell their wares near Sai Shruti. So next day, the vendors were back in business right in front of Sai Shruti. The story does not quite end here. The vendors learnt that it was Swami who had helped them to come back. And do you know how they expressed their gratitude? At that time, some clearance was going on in front of Sai Shruti to enable some expansion of the structures. The vendors offered volunteer labor every day for 2 hours during the lunch break. This sort of thing has happened many times, with Swami asking boys to go and buy straw hats or cotton candy or whatever. I remember when I went to Kodai in 2003 with Bhagwan, towards the end of our stay, Swami gave each one of us 1,000 rupees and asked us to go for shopping. Actually, I needed nothing and I did not know what to do with the money Swami gave me. A few others like me were also in the same predicament. Swami told us, listen, I am not giving this money for you to buy something for yourself. I am giving it so that you can provide some business to the Tibetan refugees. If people who come here do not buy from them, who else is going to? The local residents of Kodai? And now, allow me to describe what I would call a truly incredible incident in the life of Shirdi Baba. Believe it or not, it has all to do with Baba and a wrestling match. Let us hear it all from Hemant Pant directly. Quote, a few days later, a very astonishing incident took place, which, when listeners hear attentively, would surprise them too. Moinuddin Bai, a seller of betel leaf, areca nut, tobacco, etc., and Baba had some dispute between them, which flared up and finally resulted into a bout of wrestling, both fighting each other fiercely. Both were skilled wrestlers, but mere physical prowess cannot prevail against destiny. Moinuddin became more powerful and Baba, his strength being unequal to his opponent, was defeated. From then on, Baba's mind was made up. He changed his entire dress. He started wearing the long kafni, a langot, and a piece of cloth tied round his head. Of the gunny bag, he made his seat. The gunny bag served as a bedding too. He found contentment even in the rags he wore. Poverty holds the highest sovereignty, 1,000 times greater than the grandeur of noblemen. Allah befriends the poor. So would Sai say always. End of quote. Hemant Pant also informs us that one Gangagir, a wrestler, underwent a similar transformation. One day a wise man told him, this body should wear itself in sporting with God. Gangagir immediately gave up wrestling, became an ascetic, and established a monastery on the banks of Godavari. Well, what is one to make of this incident? No one could at that time, and frankly I cannot either, roughly a century later. But this much I can say, and I say this on the basis of a remark an American devotee made to me years and years ago when we were queuing up for entering into Sai Kulwant Hall for darshan. This devotee had just come from America and I was meeting him after a year. The very first thing he asked me after the usual greeting was, is Swami destroying your mind? I'm not sure to what extent this devotee really understood the meaning of his question. Even if he did not, I tell you it was a profound question. I believe that avatars often act beyond the domain of human logic and reason. To us mortals, their actions might at times appear strange and at other times unreasonable. Occasionally, their actions might even appear downright wrong. For a long time, I wondered why this is so. I suppose no one would ever know the answer if there is an answer. But my surmise is that all such actions are really a test for the devotee. In this context, I cannot but recall the story about faith that Swami used to narrate in the old days. It involves Krishna and Arjuna and goes something like this. One day, Krishna and Arjuna were strolling, and Krishna said, "Look, Arjuna, there is a pigeon over there on the tree." Arjuna looked in the direction in which Krishna was pointing and replied, "Yes, Krishna, I can see a pigeon over there." A few minutes later, Krishna said, "Arjuna, I think I was mistaken. The bird over there is not a pigeon but a crow. I can see it better now. What do you say?" Arjuna promptly said, "Krishna, you are right. That bird over there is a crow and not a pigeon." A short pause, and now Krishna said, "Arjuna, you are both wrong. That bird is a peacock and not a crow." Arjuna immediately agreed. Krishna turned to Arjuna and gave him a long stare. He then asked, Arjuna, what's wrong with you? Can you not see properly and come to your own conclusion? When I say the bird is a pigeon, you say it's a pigeon. When I say it's a crow, you also say it's a crow. When I say it's a peacock and not a crow, you immediately agree. How can a bird be a pigeon, a crow, and a peacock? It must be only of one species. Arjuna smiled and said, Krishna, what you say is no doubt true according to normal logic, but then you are God. You can change anything to anything at any time. One moment the bird may be a crow and the next moment it could be a peacock. You have the power to make a crow into a peacock. That being the case, who am I to question what you say? That is the beautiful story I have heard Swami tell students many times. Well, the purpose of that story is to remind us all that we had better not question God's statements or actions, but have instead full faith in Him. We just most humbly and meekly accept without question or analysis His statements and His actions. He knows, always. So, if Shirdi Baba chose to wrestle, who are we to say it is not becoming of an avatar? If he chose to yield the fight to Muinuddin, who are we to say how can an avatar be defeated? In my view, this drama of Baba was one of the many he constantly staged to test how many were on this side of logic where God is concerned and how many were on the other side. Listen now to this wonderful story told by Hemat Pant, and that shows that the one who apparently lost to a wrestler also had miraculous powers. Over to Pant. Quote, in the early days, Sai Samarth was very fond of lighting up the lamps and would himself go and ask the shopkeepers for oil to light them. Tumbler in hand, he would himself ask for oil at the grocers' shops and fill it in the earthen lamps. He would then burn the lamps bright in the temple and in the mosque. This went on continuously for some days. He was very fond of worshipping the lamps and would celebrate Diwali, the festival of lights. Strips of cloth he would twist to form wicks and burn lights in the mosque. As for the oil, he used to bring it free every day. Once, all the grocers conspired against him, thinking, now enough of this daily wearisome nuisance. Later, when Baba came to ask for oil, as was his daily practice, all of them refused when an amazing thing happened. Without a word, Baba turned back and placed dry wicks in the earthen lamps. The grocers were watching with amusement as to what Baba would do without oil. Baba picked up the tumbler from the parapet of the mosque. In it, there was just a drop or two of oil, which was barely sufficient even to light an evening lamp. Baba then poured water in that oil and drank it all up, offering it in this way to God. He then took pure water. This he poured in the earthen lamps to wet the wicks, and lighting them up, showed how the lamps could burn brightly. Seeing the water thus kindled into a flame, the grocers were astounded and said to themselves that it was not a good thing that they refused oil to Baba. Without a trace of oil, the lamps burned all night, and everybody began to say that the grocers did not deserve Sai's grace. Oh, what marvelous powers Baba has, said the grocers, and repeated that they had not only sinned by their falsehood, but needlessly enraged Baba. However, being beyond anger and hatred, all this was farthest from Baba's thoughts. He had no enemy and no friend. To him, all creatures were equal. End of quote. I leave you to reflect not only on the story itself, but also on the comments made by Hemat Pant. Note, he emphatically says that Baba is beyond anger and hatred. And yet, when one reads Baba's life story, one would find many stories in which Baba is portrayed as becoming very angry. How can God become angry? Does divine love know what anger is? Anger is a quality that is below the senses, whereas God is above the senses. When an avatar appears to be angry, it is only play acting. A staunch devotee like Hemat Pant knew this, but one lacking in total faith would not know this. He would see the unreal and mistake it for the real, the usual fatal error. Getting back to Hemant Pant, let's see what he says, and I quote, "As time went by, Sainath would only answer the questions put to him and would never talk to anyone of his own accord. During the day, he would be seated under the neem tree. Sometimes he would sit in the shade of a horizontal bunch of babul tree that grew by the stream at the village boundary. Though Baba needed no company, during the day he would be surrounded by his devotees. After sunset, however, he would sleep in the dilapidated mosque." End of quote. Pant records that from 1912, things changed, and thanks to the loving labor contributed by the devotees, the mosque was considerably spruced up. And now, on to another enigmatic incident involving Baba and a Muslim fakir. Over to Hemant Pant. Quote, "In the 5th year after the wrestling incident, a fakir, Jawahar Ali by name, who was a resident of Ahmednagar, came to Rahata along with his disciples. Choosing an open space near the Veerabhadra temple, the fakir set up his camp there. But the fakir was really fortunate. Had he not been so, how could he have had such a famous and delightful disciple as Sai? There were many people in the village, of whom quite a few were Marathas. Among them was one Bhagu Sadapal, who became his attendant. The fakir was very learned. The Quran-e-Sharif was at the tip of his fingers. Many people, some selfish, some spiritual, and some pious and faithful, became his followers. He began constructing an Eidgah, a place for prayer. Some time went by. He was then accused of defiling the temple of Veerabhadra. Then the construction work of the Eidgah came to a halt, and the fakir was driven out of the village. From Rahata, the fakir came to Shirdi and stayed with Baba in the mosque. The fakir was a sweet talker. The whole village adored him, and the people said he had cast a spell on Baba too and charmed him completely. 'You be my disciple,' this fakir said to Baba, and Baba, with his playful disposition, assented. The fakir was delighted and took Baba out of Shirdi. With an eminent disciple like Baba, Jawahar Ali became Guru. They then both decided to go and live in Rahata. The Guru did not know his disciple's marvelous ways, but the disciple knew the Guru's shortcomings. But never did the disciple show disrespect, thereby observing the duties of a good disciple. Whatever command came from the Guru's mouth, whether proper or improper, was obeyed." End of quote. Thus it was that Shirdi Baba went to Rahata along with Jawahar Ali and started living with him. The residents of Shirdi were greatly disturbed by this development, feeling that Baba had been bewitched by the fakir. They thought intensely about how to get Baba back to Shirdi. Over now to Hemant Pant. Quote, "A group of devotees from Shirdi then went to that Eidgah in Rahata, making plans in their minds how they would try very, very hard and would then return all together, bringing Baba with them. But Baba took a stand to the contrary. 'This fakir is very hot-tempered,' he said. 'Do not try to persuade him, for he will never let go of me. You now get out of here quickly, for he will return from the village presently. So terrible is his wrath that he will make a clean work of you all. His anger is fierce and will turn him red in the face. Go, be gone instantly, and take the road straight to Shirdi.' What should be done, the devotees of Shirdi thought, for Baba speaks contrary to all our expectation. Meanwhile, the fakir came back quite unexpectedly and began to ask them, 'So, you have all come for this lad? And what are you discussing? If your intention is to take him back, you might as well not take the trouble. It will be in vain.' Though he said so quite emphatically at the outset, in the end, even he yielded to the pressure of the villagers and then said, 'Take me also with you. We will all take this boy with us to Shirdi.' Thus the fakir came back with them too. He could not bear to part from Baba, and even Baba could not let him go. How this was possible, no one could understand." End of quote. A strange drama was going on, and no one knew what to expect next. So there they were, Jawahar Ali and Baba, in Shirdi, with Baba acting as the disciple of Ali. There was in Shirdi at that time a young man named Devidas who was highly enlightened. One day, the fakir Jawahar Ali was brought before Devidas, and there ensued between the two a spiritual debate. Ali was beaten hollow and was then promptly driven away by the villagers from Shirdi. Years later, that same Ali came back to Shirdi and bowed humbly before Sai Baba. Ali realized finally that Baba was the real Guru and he was at best a mere disciple. I shall not make any further comments on this weird drama, but shall just mention one point. To destroy the ego in Jawahar Ali, Baba was prepared even to assume and play the role of his disciple. That shows how far divine love can go. Himmat Pant says, quote, "He who has burnt out the conceit in his physical body is the one who will find fulfillment in this human birth. And to attain salvation, he will then accept the discipleship of anyone." End of quote. Perhaps that was the message Baba was giving via this episode. This also highlights the importance of the Guru for the seeker. Of course, one need not have to wait for an external Guru. The heart is the best Guru, for it is always with one. For the bottom line, I turn to Pant, who says, quote, "Just as the sun cannot remain in darkness, so also the man of enlightenment cannot remain in a state of duality. For the entire universe is his own self, and he dwells in Advaitam." End of quote. That is why Swami says, Advaita Darshanam Jnanam, meaning the recognition of oneness is true knowledge. That recognition comes more easily with guidance from a Guru, the best of whom is God himself. Thank you for listening. Jai Sai Ram.